Have you ever wondered, has the best part of my life already passed? Maybe you look back and see a long road, paved with work, battles won, losses that hurt, and joys that left their mark. And now, at 60, 70, 80 years old, everything seems to have slowed down. Your body doesn't keep up like it used to. The invitations dwindle. Some people are gone, and the feeling of being left behind starts weighing on your chest. But what if I told you that right now could be the most powerful moment of your life? Not because of what's behind you, but because of all that can still blossom within you. In this video, you'll discover that aging isn't an endpoint, it's a turning point. It's when the world may slow down, but the soul begins to grow. We'll talk about emotional growth, spiritual evolution, discoveries that only maturity brings. Because the truth is, aging isn't stopping, it's evolving. And this video will show you how to turn every wrinkle, every silence, every memory into strength. Stay with me until the end. The next few minutes could change how you see time, yourself, and most importantly, they could rekindle something that never truly left you: your ability to flourish. The myth of decline. From an early age, we're bombarded with a dangerous idea that aging is a process of loss of beauty, loss of energy, loss of relevance. This silent belief seeps into everything. Advertisements tell us we must fight the signs of time, as if time were our enemy. Social media celebrates young bodies, quick movements, lives that always seem to be beginning, not continuing, and often, even those closest to us start looking at us with a hint of pity, as if we were in some kind of waiting room for the end. But the truth is, all of this is a myth. A great deception that pulls us away from one of the richest phases of human existence. Aging isn't decline. It's a silent, powerful evolution, one that's often overlooked. When we're young, our worth is measured by speed, how fast we run, how fast we respond, how fast we achieve. But as the years pass, the measure changes. What matters isn't speed anymore, it's depth. You haven't lost strength, you've simply switched strength. Before, it was the strength of muscles. Now, it's the strength of the mind, the soul, memory. It's the strength that endures pain without crumbling, the kind that listens more than it shouts, the kind that sees what others can't yet perceive. While the world rushes outside, often without direction, you've learned to walk slowly, but with steady feet. You've learned not to react impulsively, but to respond with wisdom. And that isn't weakness. That's maturity in its purest form. Aging is when we stop merely surviving and finally start living with intention. You begin to understand the value of silence, the beauty of time, the importance of tending to what truly matters. So don't be fooled. Don't accept the role of someone who's fading. You're just beginning. A new chapter, more serene, more authentic, and perhaps more impactful than any you've lived before. Because the myth of decline only fools those who don't know the richness of maturity. And you, right now, are ready to prove, with every gesture, every word and every choice, that life truly begins from within. The power of presence. For much of our lives, we're pushed by a hurry that isn't always our own. Youth keeps us in constant motion. There's always a next step, a goal, an urgency. What's the next job? When will the promotion come? What else do I need to achieve to be happy? We live in an invisible race where stopping feels almost sinful. Breathing calmly, out of the question, the idea of presence gets lost in commitments, goals, and notifications. But then, time passes, and with it something shifts. At 60, 70, 80 years old, we begin to see the world from an angle few know, the awakening of maturity. It's in this phase that we discover a precious secret. The now is all we truly have. Yesterday has become memory, tomorrow is uncertain, but the now is a miracle. And it's when we stop running that we can finally be present. Suddenly, that slow-sipped coffee on the porch becomes a ritual of peace, a conversation with a grandchild, once rushed, gains depth and brightness. The breeze against your face is truly felt, because now you're fully there. Maturity teaches us that living fully doesn't require much. It requires attention. Attention to listen without thinking of a response. Attention to look into the eyes of the person in front of you. Attention to recognize that being alive, even with pain or limitations, is a rare gift. Presence isn't just being physically somewhere. It's surrendering your heart to that moment. It's allowing yourself to feel everything it brings. The joy, the nostalgia, the silence, the sound of life unfolding. While the world insists on speed, those who mature choose depth. They choose to stay in the moment. They choose to live fully, even in the smallest things. And in doing so, they find a peace that youth rarely experiences. Being present is a kind of wisdom you won't find in books. It's the wisdom of a calm soul, a mind that no longer needs to prove anything, a heart that understands that every moment lived with awareness is worth more than 1,000 days on autopilot. In maturity, life stops being measured in goals. It starts being felt in moments. And that's when we discover the true power of presence, not as something ordinary, but as a sacred act. Because being here now with body, mind, and spirit in the same place is the most human miracle there is. Wisdom doesn't rush. We live in a time where everything must be fast. Information, answers, solutions. But wisdom, that moves at a different pace. It doesn't force itself, it ripens. And that's why some of life's best lessons only come with time. In youth, we seek instant answers. We want to know everything now, experience everything at once. But slowly, we realize not everything fast is right. Not everything instant is deep. Wisdom doesn't shout, it whispers. It comes slowly, in the pauses between silence, in moments when we dare to stop and reflect. With maturity, we start valuing questions more than answers. At 60, at 70, we understand that not every doubt needs resolving. But every doubt deserves respect, because there's beauty in mystery, growth in waiting, and peace in accepting we don't control everything. The wisdom of maturity is quiet but powerful. It's in choosing not to react impulsively, in deciding to listen before speaking, in kindness that doesn't wait for applause, in forgiveness that frees even without apologies. Wisdom is knowing that sometimes it's better to lose an argument and gain a moment of peace. It's knowing that silence isn't avoidance, but choosing what truly deserves your voice. And the most beautiful part? Wisdom doesn't depend on degrees. It's born from a life lived, from pain faced, from joys savored slowly, from falls and comebacks. As we age, we stop seeking external approval and start following our inner compass. The one that points to what truly matters. The one that teaches the difference between being right and being at peace. So if anyone tells you that aging means becoming outdated, smile, because only those who've matured know what's essential doesn't rush. And true wisdom takes as long as it needs to bloom. The beauty of simplicity. As the years pass, something curious happens to our perspective. What once seemed small, ordinary, even mundane, begins to shine with a special glow. Maturity teaches us that life isn't made of grand events, but of the small details we once overlooked. The smell of coffee in the morning, a bird singing by the window, the quiet affection of a grandchild simply holding your hand. These things, which seemed simple, now reveal their true grandeur. In youth, we were taught to chase the extraordinary, the dream vacation, roaring success, applause. But with time, we realize true beauty lies in the simple and the genuine. Because what's simple is light, and what's light endures. Simplicity teaches us gratitude for being alive, for breathing deeply and feeling the breeze on your face, for having stories to tell, even those marked by scars. Every scar carries an experience, and every experience, a lesson. To live simply isn't to live with less, it's to live with essence. It's knowing what truly matters, saying yes only to what has soul, and saying no with peace in your heart. The beauty of simplicity is that it demands no masks. Lets us be who we truly are without the need to impress, prove, or compete. In simplicity, there's authenticity, space for sincere laughter, comfortable silence, undivided presence. In youth, we often mistake happiness for complexity. But with time, we learn less is more. Less anxiety, less hurry, less demand, and more presence, more meaning, more peace. Maturity invites us back to what's essential, and in doing so, we discover life's beauty was never in the storefront displays, but in the quiet backstage of everyday moments, because simplicity is the language of a mature soul. And those who learn to listen to it live lighter, deeper, and infinitely happier. Relationships that nourish. In the rush of youth, we often surround ourselves with people out of convenience, habit, or vanity. We seek approval, fear rejection, and reshape ourselves to fit into groups that don't truly embrace us. But with maturity, something shifts profoundly. We start choosing more carefully who we let into our lives. After 60, time becomes too precious to waste on empty connections. Masks fall away, games lose their meaning, and what truly matters is genuine presence. The kind that doesn't demand performance. The kind that accepts our essence, even on silent days. Nourishing. Relationships aren't the loudest. They're the ones that offer listening, that meet our gaze with calm, that stay even when circumstances change, that don't compete, demand, or diminish. Mature relationships don't drain us, they strengthen. With maturity, we learn to recognize people's energy. We know who brings peace, who adds value, and who belongs in the past, released with gratitude and forgiveness. Because to forgive isn't to condone, it's to free ourselves from weight we no longer need to carry. Friendships in later life grow quieter but far deeper. They don't require constant contact, but true connection. And love, when it comes, isn't there to complete us, but to walk beside us, because we've already learned to be whole. Family, too, takes on new meaning. Sometimes it's bound by blood, other times by choice, by conscious affection. And that's okay, because what matters isn't the label, it's the care. Maturity lets us love with more freedom, without fear of loss, without the need to control. We love because we choose to, not because we need to, and that changes everything. Nourishing relationships aren't perfect, they're real. They don't keep our bodies young, but they rejuvenate our souls. They remind us who we are, they teach us empathy, patience, and surrender. And when we look back, we realize life's most important moments weren't lived alone. They were shared with people who left marks of love, not absence. At 60, 70, 80 years old, we understand that life's greatest wealth lies in the connections we touch with our hearts. Because, in the end, it's not about what we achieved, but who we shared every achievement with. The wisdom of silence. In youth, we learn to speak, to argue, to defend ourselves, to prove our point. But in maturity, we learn the power of silence. Not the silence of avoidance, but the silence of observation, of deep listening, of the wisdom that understands not everything needs a response, and that time often answers better than words ever could. There's a tranquility that only comes with the years, when you've lived enough to realize that not every criticism deserves a reaction, that not every insult needs to be returned, that not every conflict must be won. Silence becomes a choice, a protection, a sign of emotional maturity. Instead of reacting impulsively, we learn to breathe, to observe, to let pass what doesn't serve us, because this isn't weakness, it's inner strength. Silence also brings us closer to what's essential. It lets us listen to ourselves, to hear what life has been trying to tell us. While many are still fighting to be heard, those who've matured understand there's more wisdom in listening than in speaking, because listening is an act of humility. It's admitting there's always more to learn, and there's a subtle beauty in the silence between two people who understand each other. It's not discomfort, it's connection. It's when words become unnecessary because the heart is already saying everything. In a noisy world where everyone shouts their truths, those who learn to be silent discover the serenity that comes with balance. They discover that silence isn't absence, it's profound presence. Gradually, we stop needing to win arguments and start wanting to keep the peace. We stop reacting impulsively and start acting with intention. And this changes how we live, how we relate, how we experience the world. The wisdom of silence isn't about withdrawing from life. It's about drawing closer to what truly matters. And when we finally understand this, we realize that silence speaks louder than any words ever could. Rediscovering yourself. For much of our lives, we live to fulfill roles. We are children, parents, professionals, caregivers, providers. We shape ourselves to others' expectations, trying to do everything right, trying to handle it all. But there comes a moment, usually after 60, when a rare, precious, almost sacred space opens up. The moment of rediscovery. When the children are grown, the work slows down and the rush loses its grip, we're faced with a powerful question. Who am I now without the labels? It's a reunion with your essence, with forgotten dreams, with simple pleasures, with talents quietly set aside for decades. It's when we finally give ourselves permission to be, truly. Without the haste of youth, without the pressure to please, without the weight of appearances. Maturity brings the chance to live for yourself, not in a selfish way, but in the most beautiful sense of the word, authenticity. Maybe you'll rediscover a passion for painting, for writing, for playing an instrument, for walking in silence, for simply breathing with presence. Rediscovering yourself is an act of courage. It's looking inward and embracing who you are today, with your scars, your story, with everything life has taught you. It's stopping the search outside for what can only be found within. And the most beautiful part, it's never too late. Never too late to start a new project, to fall in love with something new, to learn a skill that once seemed impossible, to change direction, change your mind, change your life. At 60, 70, 80 years old, the soul is still fertile. The heart still beats for new experiences. The mind still thirsts for discovery. And in this phase, we can live with more lightness because we've finally understood. We have nothing left to prove. Rediscovering yourself is liberating. It's peeling away the layers time has accumulated and reclaiming the joy of simply being. And in this new chapter, every day becomes an opportunity, not to go back to who we were, but to finally become who we are. Relationships with more truth. In youth, we seek connections, friendships based on affinity, loves born of passion, relationships driven by need or impulse. But as the years pass, we discover quantity isn't quality. We learn that true relationships don't shout. They embrace. They don't demand. But they don't impose, but offer themselves with ease. In maturity, we care less about appearances and more about presence, less about promises, more about actions, less about having many around us, and more about having few, but good by our side. At 60, our view of love changes. It's no longer an urgent need, but becomes an encounter with peace. This is when we understand the best companionship is one that respects our silence, that shares the day without invading the soul, that adds without taking away our individuality. Friendships take on new value. Too, we no longer try to please everyone. We prefer those who see us whole, who know our flaws and choose to stay anyway. In maturity, masks fall away. We have no patience left for emotional games, for toxic relationships, for people who drain our energy. And this is freedom. Freedom to say no without guilt, to set boundaries firmly but respectfully, to choose who we want to share our life with. More than that, we learn to relate better to ourselves. Because when you accept, respect, and embrace yourself, you stop begging for affection. You share love, but don't depend on it to feel whole. Maturity teaches that the strongest bonds are those built with truth, where there's no fear of being imperfect, where there's no need to constantly prove your worth, Such relationships are rare, but they exist, and when they appear, they heal us. They strengthen us. They remind us it's still possible to love, lightly, deeply, and reciprocally. Because in the end, it's not about being with someone to fill a void, but about overflowing together. And this is one of the greatest gifts of aging, the beauty of aging. For too long, they told us aging was about losing youth, losing agility, losing our place. But what if we change that lens? What if, instead of focusing on what fades, we started valuing what we gain? Because yes, there is beauty in aging, a beauty not seen in storefronts, but felt in the soul. It's the beauty of wrinkles that tell stories, of hands marked by lives lived, of eyes that have seen both tears and miracles. It's the beauty of those who've fallen and risen, of those who know life isn't about perfection, but about overcoming, of those who no longer need others' validation because they've found worth within. At 60, 70, 80 years old, it's no longer about following standards. It's about proudly owning every mark of time, every line on your face that says you've lived. You didn't just pass through the years, you crossed them with courage. The beauty of maturity lies in authenticity, in the freedom to wear what you want, say what you think, act with a heart at peace. It's a beauty that doesn't seek applause, but finds radiance in silences, in simple gestures, in connection with what truly matters. It's the beauty of a smile that doesn't need to convince, of a hug that transmits calm, of a gaze that no longer judges, understands. While the world chases youth at any cost, maturity offers something more, precious, the chance to be whole. Whole with our scars, with our lessons, with the lightness of those who know that living well isn't about having everything. It's knowing everything that matters is already here. And when we see this beauty, when we recognize each phase has its grace, we stop fighting time and start dancing with it. In every step, a memory. In every gesture, a rebirth. Because aging isn't dimming the light, it's making it softer, warmer, truer. The wisdom of silence. In youth, noise attracts us. We talk too much, react too quickly, desperately want to be heard. We believe strength lies in speech, in arguments, in immediate responses. But time teaches us that true power resides in silence. Yes, silence, that sacred space between thoughts. The pause before a decision. The deep breath before a reply. This is where clarity, maturity, and true wisdom live. As we mature, we learn that not everything needs to be said. Not every opinion needs voicing. Not every provocation deserves a response. Because understanding the right moment to speak is just as important as knowing when to stay quiet. Silence protects us, allows us to listen. With an open heart, without already formulating replies in our heads, helps us hear what lies beneath words, what others feel but cannot express. And perhaps most importantly, it lets us listen to ourselves. In modern life's rush, silence has become a luxury. But for those who've reached maturity, it becomes a necessity. This is where we reorganize internal chaos, see what was hidden beneath haste. Silence isn't absence. It's pure presence, connection with what's essential. The moment we stop being hostages to ego and become friends with our soul at 60, 70, 80, silence isn't emptiness, it's fullness. When we stop trying to impress the world and start being awed by simple things, the sound of wind, the taste of ripe fruit, memories that arrive unannounced and make us smile. The wisdom of silence is knowing that often the most powerful thing we can offer is our listening, not just with ears, but with our entire soul. Because in silence, life whispers truths that noise never lets us hear. The freedom to be yourself. There comes a time in life when we grow tired of masks, of pretending, of trying to please everyone, of chasing impossible standards. Curiously, this freedom usually comes with time. It's in maturity that many discover they no longer need to prove anything to anyone, no longer need to fit molds or follow rules that never made sense. At 60, 70, 80 years old, you begin to permit yourself to feel, to rest, to say no without guilt, to say yes with joy. This is one of aging's greatest gifts, the freedom to be yourself, unapologetically, fearlessly, unhurriedly. When you stop comparing yourself to others and start recognizing your uniqueness, youth demands performance, image, success. Maturity values essence, presence, peace. Being yourself means wearing what feels right, laughing loudly, even if others find it odd, speaking your mind kindly but firmly, no longer caring what others think, because you finally understand what matters most is what you think of yourself. More than that, it's knowing that changing your mind is natural, that evolution is inevitable, that mistakes aren't catastrophes, but steps toward becoming more authentic. The freedom to be yourself comes when we understand we've been many versions of ourselves and all were necessary to arrive here. There's no more obligation to please, just the desire to be whole. To the world, it may seem you're slowing down, but inside you're blossoming, because true freedom, is being unashamedly you. And when this freedom arrives, the soul breathes, and life gains new vitality. Late blooming. Some believe dreams have an expiration date, that beyond a certain point nothing new can begin, but this is just another illusion, another myth that time dismantles. The truth, some flowers only bloom later, and when they do, they're even more beautiful, stronger, more meaningful. At 60, 70, 80, you're not at the end. You're at a different kind of beginning, a calmer, wiser, deeper start. No longer the beginning of haste, but of conscious choice. You no longer chase time. You walk beside it. How many people discover talents after retirement? How many fall in love again, return to studies, travel, write books, start projects they never dared before? Late blooming is this: when you understand your story is still being written, that every chapter can surprise, that days still hold possibilities, and that your best harvests may still be ahead. There's special beauty in what matures slowly. Wine, for example, only becomes valuable with time. Aged wood, faded photographs, handmade embroidery, everything that carries history gains value measured not in numbers, but in depth. And you are like this, a garden blooming quietly, with deep roots and resilient petals. Maturity doesn't steal brilliance, it refines it. So don't accept the has-been label, because where there's life, there's road. Where there's road, there's horizon, and the soul's horizon is ageless. It simply expands, silently, powerfully, beautifully, just like you, a new spring. You've listened this far, and perhaps something within you has awakened, a thought, a memory, or maybe an old desire that had been dormant. This is precisely what maturity offers, the chance to begin anew without erasing what came before. Every mark from your past is proof of your courage. Every scar, evidence you've overcome. Aging isn't fading life's colors, it's blending them with greater wisdom. Perhaps the world doesn't properly value the beauty of those who've lived so much, but here, in this space, you're recognized for all you are, for your history, your presence, for continuing to grow within, even as your body slows. This is the new spring, and it doesn't appear on calendars, it blossoms within the soul. So if you believe you still have something to experience, something to learn, something to give, you're right. Because aging isn't stopping, it's evolving. Now I invite you, share this video with someone who also needs to hear this. Subscribe to continue walking this path with us. And in the comments, tell us, what have you learned through the years? Because here, every story matters, and every life lived courageously deserves celebration. Until next time, and remember, the soul has no age. It simply blooms in every season.